Hey guys, welcome back to Scythe Boys Review. I'm Scythe. A while ago, I got a package of hand painting related tools from Godhand. After using them personally, I will be reviewing them with you today. To make my review more effective and accurate, I reached out to a friend and a master in the Canadian Gunpla and modeling community to help me out. Since I'm very entry level in hand painting, I will go over the basic functionalities and the Semi-PRO set. My friend Simon will review all the more advanced tools and compare the difference between the Semi-PRO and Pro sets. So here is the Godhand Brushworks Semi-PRO Set. Each set includes 4 brushes: the filbert shape brush, 2 point brushes, long and short, and the dry brush. I will be testing out these brushes on this Warhammer Space Marine. I'm very new in hand painting and Warhammer, so please bear with me. Let us begin with the filbert shape brush. This is a brush with no edge shape. It is meant to paint large areas without leaving paint strokes. Aside from the Space Marine, I also used it in my Naya Gundam build. Check it out if you haven't. Next, here is the long point brush. The purpose of it is to paint small areas. By having a longer bristle, it can store more paint. Then comes the short point brush. This is a pointed brush for painting tiny spots. Lastly, we have the dry brush. It is usually used to highlight the details of the model. Once again, I'm not super advanced in hand painting, but I will go over all the basics in my future tutorials. If this is the first time you find my videos, I make kit and tool reviews, custom builds, and tutorials. I update weekly. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel for more. I also have recently made a Discord server. Feel free to scan the QR code and become an early member. The link is also in the descriptions. Now, I will let Simon take over the rest of the reviews. If you wonder who he is, I introduced him in our last collaboration. You can check out on the link above.
Hey guys, so this is what we're going to be looking at tonight. Looks like we got a bunch of new toys from Godhand. Looks like these are some brushes. We got some wet palette paper and also a little gadget that you can wear on your thumb, I believe. Alright, so let's take a look into more details on each of these items. Okay, so let's look at the brushes we got here. So this one says dry brush. Okay, so these two are basically identical at a different size. One is actually smaller, one's a tiny bit bigger. This is actually quite unusual because typically when I have to do dry brushing, that means I'm tackling a decent sized surface. So having a smaller brush is actually less efficient than a bigger one. But at the same time, if I actually want more control or I only want a specific area for dry brushing, this gives you a lot more accuracy. So this is great. To give you a reference, a normal dry brushing brush that I use is about this size. So look at the size of the brush tip, you can see the difference right there. Now let's see what these are. So this is a generic set, looks like. This is for Semi-PRO. Got 4 brushes. You have the tiny one, the detail one, regular usage, that's about the size 0 there, and a flat brush and a dry brush as well. Now this one, okay, so this one is super small, meant for very detailed work. From the brush size, this is probably a 000. It could even be a 40 here. It's a very tiny brush. Now one thing worth to mention that the handle is super stubby on this one. The reason why is because when we actually paint detail work, we tend to hold on to the brush all the way down to the ferrule like that. So that gives you the most stability and the detail that you need when you're doing detailing work. So the short handle actually makes a lot of sense. Okay, so when we talk about brushes, there's actually 2 categories of brushes that's available. One is the synthetic brushes. I believe these Godhands are actually synthetic, so let's take a quick look. So the bristle is 100% PBT. So yeah, so it's some type of nylon plastic material. The other type is made by real animal hair. And usually the top of the line ones are what we call the Kolinsky hair, the sable brushes like this one here. Now, why do we need two types of brushes? First of all, it all depends on the type of paint that you're going to be using. Because what happened is Kolinsky sable hair brushes are extremely sensitive to chemical. So if you use anything other than ink, watercolor, or aquatic paint, the chemical in the paint itself can easily damage your brushes quite easily. So if you have any intention of using lacquer paint or enamel paint, this is out of the question. You cannot use them with the real animal hair brushes, because that would be a waste of your brushes. Because what happens is this type of brushes typically are the more expensive one. They can easily cost you roughly around $50 to $100, so you do not want to kill them in one shot. So we also have synthetic brushes. So the question is, so if those things, the real hair brushes are so sensitive or so finicky, why don't we just use synthetic brushes altogether? Synthetic brushes are great. As a workhorse, they can take a lot of beating, so you can use any type of paint that you want. But at the same time, one of the biggest problems with synthetic brushes is over time that it tends to develop a little hook on the tip. What I mean is the tip of your paintbrush here, over usage, it starts to curl up like this. So for normal usage, it's not really a big deal. But if you tend to paint a lot of detail work, for example, like if you you have to draw a picture on a small miniature figure like this one, what will happen is if you have the hook, that means what you're pointing at is not really the point that your brush is touching your figure, because you now have the hook. So it's off by a little bit. Now as you roll the brush, that hook can be upper, lower, left, or right by a tiny bit, and that becomes an accuracy issues. So that's why once a synthetic brush starts to develop the hook, for me, that means that brush is gone. I'm gonna have to buy a new one. Then typically, how long would it last me? I don't think any synthetic brush will last more than a month before developing the hook. But the thing is, if I'm not doing detailed work, then with or without the hook doesn't really matter. At the same time, if I'm not using aquatic paint, if I'm using enameled or lacquer paint, because they're more durable and all the other reasons why you need to use those paint, these are actually my only options right there. One of the good things with a real sable hair brushes is, in general, they tend to have a bigger belly. So what I mean is, if you compare these two brushes here, not only that one is longer than the other, this is thicker than the other one. So thicker, we call it a belly. That's a bigger belly. That means that it can actually store more paint when you dip into the paint. Because one of the characteristics for acrylic paint is that they tend to dry really, really quickly. So if you have a paintbrush with a very tiny tip, that's not holding a lot of paint. What could happen is it might actually dry up before you even touch the model. Or let's say if you have to draw a line, do a pattern, or write some alphabets on it, that ink might dry up halfway through the process. Then you gotta redip, go back and touch it up. When you have a paintbrush that has a bigger belly, it actually keeps enough paint in it that it don't dry as quickly, that you can actually finish your entire line without interruption. So that's one of the benefits of having Kolinsky hair brushes. But one of the other problems with Kolinsky hair brushes, as much as they're really good at keeping the tip and they don't develop the hook, they need a lot of maintenance. To a point that you're basically rinsing or shampooing your brush every 40 seconds to a minute or so. Yes, eventually you do develop the habit of doing so, but then it's still annoying. So that's the general difference between the two types of brushes. So as you can see, there really is no ultimate answer as to like which brushes is the best or what is better than the other one. It really all comes down to the type of paint that you'll be using, the level of detail that you're looking forward to, or how often you paint, and sometimes even the shape of the brush itself, whether it has a bigger or smaller belly, or let's say the hard bristle is good for a dry brushing, and then a flat tip is good for edge highlighting. So each of the brush and the shape has its own purposes, where there will be a situation that where you need that brush for the applications. So it's not a matter of what's better than the other, but in general I can tell you this brush from Godhand are all made with pretty good, pretty impressive quality. So if synthetic brushes is what you're looking for, I would definitely recommend that you look into this one. Okay, so let's look at the other goodies we got here. At first I thought these are actually wet palette paper. Apparently they're not, because this seems too thick. This almost feels like a cardboard paper to me, so this can't be a wet palette paper. So now before we talk about a wet palette, well, if you're going to be painting with acrylic paint, do yourself a favor, get yourself a wet palette. This thing right here. So typically there's a sponge at the bottom where you put in the soak it in water, and with the wet palette paper on top to maintain the transfer of moisture to the paint. The reason why I asked you to get it is because, like I said before, acrylic paint dries up really quickly. So if you just used acrylic paint off the bottle directly out of some water, it would probably be completely dry within 5 to 10 minutes. And then you're gonna have to use put in more new paint again. So that's a huge consumption if that's how you use your paint. So typically that's why we have a wet palette, is to keep the paint moist so that it doesn't dry as quickly as you would just leave it on the table. With a wet palette, the paint can easily last you a couple of days, if not a week. So the difference is night and day. And the other benefit while using a wet palette is that it can control the amount of moisture you have in the paint, so the dilution of the paint can be controlled on the paper itself. So you can basically just dip the paintbrush with paint, and then you can actually see the consistency of the paint itself. Now, if you don't use a wet palette, sometimes it might be overly diluted. So when you paint it on the model, it's just nothing but water basically. So you want to be able to tell the consistency of the paint before you actually apply it on the model. What happens when you do have too much of paint? So typically in old days, what I would do is that before I actually paint on the model, a lot of times I would actually do a little paint on my nail just to see the consistency, see how transparent it is, so that I will know that if I actually use it applying on the model, what to expect. So Godhand developed something a little nicer, I believe, so that apparently these they call it the wet plate. So instead of using my fingernail, I can actually dip it onto the paper to actually get rid of the extra moisture, the extra water that's in the paint, so that I get a nice consistency when I actually apply it to the model, instead of letting the liquid flow everywhere. So I believe that's what this paper is for. And there's an even fancier version that you can actually put this on the foam and stick, I guess using double-sided tape to put this smaller version of the same paper onto here. So instead of sacrificing my foam for this purposes, I can just do it on this plate, and that's removable, so keeping everything cleaned. So I guess that's a matter of personal preferences, whether you like your workstation stay perfect at all times, or you don't mind a little paint here and there, even that means it's on the foam. It's up to you, but that's what these stubs are for. So that's all, folks. Enjoy it and keep painting. See you next time.
Hopefully you guys enjoyed Simon's review. I learned a lot from him, and I wish you guys did it as well. To find out more about Simon's work, you can check out his Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I will leave them in the descriptions. For some final thoughts, I find the Godhand Semi-PRO Set super handy for beginner like me. For anyone who is just getting started or is average in hand painting, it is enough to fulfill 90% of the requirements. If you're more advanced in hand painting like Simon, the Godhand Pro Set offers something specific to your needs. How do you guys feel about all the new Godhand painting tools? Will you buy it? Let me know in the comments. That is all from me. Special thanks to Plamod for providing these tools for review. Plamod is the official Bandai Distributor in Canada. Buy from Canadian hobby businesses to give them some support. If you enjoyed this review, please like and subscribe to my channel and be sure to hit the notification bell for more in the future. Leave some suggestions in the comments and let me know what kit you want to see next. You can follow my Instagram and Twitter for almost daily updates. If you're willing to help me out, I have a Patreon for some Patreon exclusive content. Thank you so much for watching. Scythe here. I will see you next time.